Hello friends, and welcome back to our homestead. Today I'm going to be making my sauerkraut, and I already have a video about how I make my Slavic style sauerkraut, and it's one of the best viewed videos on my YouTube channel, which is I'm quite surprised because I thought I have so many other good videos, but hey, I'm happy to share my knowledge and my experiences. So the reason why I wanted to do another video about how to make sauerkraut is because I want to give you a chance to hear my answers. I have had so many questions about why you're doing it this way, why are you doing it that way, well, why don't you just do it this way? I just want to explain to you all of the reasonings why I'm doing what I'm doing, okay? So if you guys want to follow along, this is what we're going to be doing today. So also I want to introduce you to one of my new friends. This is an exciting friend. So for I don't know what was the occasion, but my husband got me a really cool gift. Oh my goodness, it's heavy. Oh my goodness, it's heavy. This is a stone, and it's a very large one, stone crock for fermenting vegetables with a nice lid and the weights, the stone weights that go along with it. So it's going to be a maiden voyage of my stone crock. So I'm super excited. All right, so let me show you the things I'm going to be needing today for my sauerkraut fermentation, for cabbage fermentation, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm using them. And yeah, so let's see. Okay, I'm gonna, oh my goodness, it's heavy. So obviously I'm gonna need cabbage, and I have 3 heads of cabbage here. This is my own cabbage that I harvested a few months ago, and it was sitting in a cool storage. And I just took off the outer layers and I rinsed it a little bit. But these are like the smaller one, a medium size, and 2 large ones. And then I have a good pile of carrots, okay? Carrots, I'm adding carrots because it's gonna add a nice sweetness to it. And because remember, the lactofermentation, the lactic acid that's in the bacteria are gonna be fermenting, they need some sweetness. So some people like to add sugar. I don't add sugar. Instead, I put natural sugar in a form of a carrot. Plus, I like how it ferments. It has a nice little zesty taste. It's really good. And that's exactly how my mama made it, my Russian mama. So that's exactly how I'm gonna be doing it. So cabbage and carrots. Okay, for other items, I'm gonna be needing salt. And I have, this is a very large, coarse salt. Okay, this is a Celtic sea salt. And I'm gonna be using this Celtic sea salt. In the last video, I used Himalayan salt, which will work just fine as well. I do not use any other kind of salt. Definitely without any additives or without iodine. So no iodized salt. And then I'm going to be using pepper. So normally we use peppercorns, whole peppercorns, but in this version, I'm going to be actually cracking it and using just crushed up fresh pepper. And what else? And we're going to be needing water, okay? So let me show you what I have left over from my sauerkraut that was made. Are you guys ready? Almost 2 years ago. This was made almost 2 years ago, and it was left in the back of the fridge. I forgot about it. And I just want to show you what it looks like. Guess what? It's still edible. It's still good to use. It still has really good aroma of sauerkraut. The only difference is, let me grab a fork or something. Hold on a second. I just want to show you what it looks like. Oh, I'm going to take just a little bit. I want to show you what it looks like. I need a plate. I need a plate. Hold on a second. All right. This is what it looks like. It's very translucent. It lost its really nice color. The carrot is still present, but it's became much more pale. And they became a little softer, but still have a nice crunch to them, okay? They are still edible, even though it was almost 2 years old. I mean, ideally, I keep my sauerkraut for 1 year. It's good for 1 year. And that's exactly what our ancestors did. They harvested cabbage, made sauerkraut, ate it through the season until the next crop of cabbage was ready for sauerkraut. And that's exactly what we did. So somebody asked me how you call this in my language. We call this kvashenaya kapusta. Kvashenaya means fermented, kapusta, cabbage. So this is what it is. And it's still edible, almost 2 years old, but that's not what it's about. I want to show you a couple of other things that may happen when you are fermenting vegetables. So here is a jar. Can you guys see this okay? So here's a jar of fermented carrots. I'm not eating them anymore. But I also found them in the back of my fridge. So I just want to show you what may happen. Do you see that white film that's happening at the top and at the bottom? That's like almost like a yeasty scum that happens, okay? It's not mold. It is not mold. So I'm gonna go down there with this big spoon and see how it's turning milky? That is because it's a lactofermentation, but it has yeast in it. Guess what? It's still edible. They're still good, but I'm just not going to eat them because they're also 2 years old and I'm not going to be eating them. But you may see some of this white film happening on the top of your fermentation, not to confuse with mold. Mold will be fuzzy and sparse. That is not good. But yeasty, natural yeast fermentation that happens is normal. You may skim it with a spoon and throw it away, or just push it aside. However, it will come back. So let me see if I can put the camera right against that and show you inside, because you can literally see how it is forming at the top. And you can skim it off with a spoon, but trust me, it will come back. And this happens only towards the end of the fermentation. Towards the end, okay? So again, it's not harmful. White, milky kind of film is normal yeasty scum that forms. It's okay, just skim it off and it's fine. But these guys are old. I'm not gonna be eating them. I'm gonna discard them for now. And I'm gonna be focusing on making new batch of sauerkraut. So let me show you from start to finish my method and explain to you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. All right, so the first things first, we need to start shredding the cabbage, okay? So you can remove the outer layers of cabbage, the leaves, because they're usually more a little bit on the rougher side, and I really don't need them. So whether you're using a mandolin to shred it, or you're using a knife or a food processor, whatever you really want. I'm going to be just using a regular knife to cut them into the slices that I like. Some people cut them in big chunks. I like to slice them just like my mama did, in thin slices, like almost like a julienne. So I'm using a sharp knife, and I don't like them in very big chunks, very big pieces. So after I cut them in half again. So when they break up, they will be tiny little pieces like this, but enough to grab with the fork, okay? So that's what I'm doing. I remember my mama and papa, they made a lot of sauerkraut every season, every fall. They did a lot of sauerkraut, and they usually had this old-fashioned mandolin that they sliced with. It was a wooden wide board with a blade, and that was my father's job to slice it nice and thin. Okay, so the next step, I'm gonna be also getting ready my carrots. So I already peeled them and I got them ready, and I'm gonna be shredding them. So as I drop them into the crock, I just break them up immediately like this. So make sure that you're working with clean hands, clean instruments, everything is nice and clean, because you don't want to bring any kind of pathogen that is not friendly to fermentation. So I'm going to be just keep slicing this along into my nice little slices. Okay, just like this. The next thing is to shred carrots. And I like how carrots add nice little sweetness and promotes growth of probiotics through the cabbage. Some people add sugar or apples. I don't do that because that's not part of my recipe. Carrots will do just fine and add enough sweetness. So I have a nice little layer of cabbage, and on top of that I'm going to be putting carrots just like this. And I'm going to be adding a little bit of fresh ground pepper. How much pepper to add, guys, really it's up to your taste, because if you want it a lot, put a lot. You want a little, you do little. The reason why I'm not adding any whole peppercorns like I did in my previous video is because sometimes it's difficult to eat and you kind of push aside the peppercorns because you don't want to bite into it. And I'm going to continue cutting the cabbage. All right, so as I'm cutting the cabbage, I just want to share with you the reasons why I did not add the salt right now. So there are many variations of how to make sauerkraut. And I feel like everyone feels that their method is the most correct one. And you know what? That's fine, but I am not doing it that way. I have done in the past where you shred the cabbage and you massage it with salt in hopes that the cabbage will produce enough juice to cover itself. And here is the problem, my friends. You guys ready for the answer? Not all cabbage will produce enough juice, enough liquid to do proper and safe fermentation. Because we want the good bacteria to grow and multiply in billions, right? But we want to make sure that there is no bad pathogenic bacteria growing. And how do we do that? We're keeping it in the acidic environment, acidic environment where the good bacteria will grow and the bad one will not. And we're providing it that salty environment, right? That salty environment. So, but what happens if cabbage is exposed at the top and not covered with liquid? It will grow gray mold, which is very dangerous. And unfortunately, that has happened to me a long time ago. And that's when I discovered that not all cabbage produces enough liquid. And how I discovered it? Because now I know that there are early cabbage varieties that will produce a lot of juice, and there are late varieties that will not produce a lot of juice. So if you guys have seen my other video, I have answered pretty much to every single comment out there who asked me how come I add liquid to it, and how come I do not do massaging of the cabbage. All right, so one of the reasons why I do not massage the cabbage is because I want it to stay in its shape, not mushed up and become soft. I want it to have that crunch and bite in my mouth, okay? And also because I know that some cabbage, this is a late variety of cabbage. I harvest it for the winter months, so it will store for the winter months, because I'm still storing my other cabbage for the winter months. So it will stay through the winter, right? That's in storage. Does not produce a lot of liquid. So therefore, this is why my method is not massaging the cabbage, but rather layering it with carrot, with peppers. Peppercorns or crushed pepper, and covered everything with brine. So I'm going to be making a salty brine. And I'll show you exactly how I measure, so I will know. Because there's some method that you take the cabbage, you shred it, and you sprinkle salt. How much salt? Is it enough salt? Is it not enough salt? So there's no guessing game, okay? No guessing game. So it comes out the same each and every time. And I know, oh my goodness, this is a big guy. And I know that in this case, no bad bacteria will grow, Okay, no bad bacteria to grow because it's going to be a salty environment. It's going to be covered with brine and no bad pathogens can attempt to grow. All right, so this is why I will be making a brine. So what kind of water can you use for the brine? It is important that the water is chlorine free. Well, in my case, it's also fluoride free. So either you take tap water, you leave it in a container, open container, for 2 days, at least 2 days, so that the chlorine escapes from it, okay? Or you buy water that is spring water and filtered water. In my case, we have good water that comes from our well, chlorine free and fluoride free. And in that case, all the other chemical free. All right, second layer is going in just like this. All right, back to the cabbage shredding. I like to cut in fours. It's easier for me that way. Come on. There you go. And I always cut out the core right there. I remember my mama and papa used to make cabbage just like this. And I used to sit there and eat the core. That's what I used to do. So you may ask me what containers are good for fermentation. And you can always use a glass quart jar. That's going to be the smallest one. I do enjoy to use the wide mouth because everything has to be pushed down and submerged under the brine or under the liquid. So no bad bacteria, no fuzzy mold is growing. Okay, so this is like the smallest one you can do. You can always use some other large glass container like this one, and again use some sort of a weight to keep and push everything down. And that's what I have done before. I just use a 3-liter big jar that I've had left over from something, and that's what I used. But today I'm going to be using this big stone fermentation crock as well, and those are very good to use, and that's going to be my vessel for today. Now listen guys, one thing I do not advise is don't use plastic. I don't like to use plastic or any kind of metal device. Glass is the best because we don't want any leaching into the healthy food. Let's keep it healthy. All right, so back to shredding cabbage. Someone asked me a question. How many probiotics is in sauerkraut? And you know what? I'm not a laboratory, so I cannot say in a very specific way, but I do know that 2 ounces of homemade sauerkraut contain more probiotics than 100 capsules of purchased probiotic pills that you buy commercially. 2 ounces of sauerkraut. Isn't that something amazing? And also, an average sauerkraut can contain about 28 of different strains of probiotics, of lacto-fermented probiotics. And on top of that, it's very high in fiber because remember, cabbage is high in fiber and we need good fiber, but it also has good amount of vitamin C. And there is some research shows that once the cabbage ferments, the amount of vitamin C in the cabbage in the fermentation actually increases. I think that's pretty awesome. And it also has iron, manganese, potassium, what else? I know I already said iron, but anyway, good minerals in it as well. So probiotics, it's delicious. Come on, sauerkraut is so good. There is some debate on where the where the cabbage fermentation originated, and I feel like every nation wants to claim it as their own. It doesn't matter, my friends. It's delicious, and I think everyone should be able to make it, use it, and eat it every day. I do recommend eating a small amount of sauerkraut every single day. But if you've never have eaten any live probiotics before, start small. Otherwise, you're gonna be a little bit on the gassy side. So why is it important to eat live homemade probiotics? Because remember, when you buy probiotics, sometimes it requires you to have prebiotic and a probiotic, because a prebiotic is just a fancy name for fiber, because the probiotics need to eat fiber in order to survive, right? They need food, and they are eating the food, the fibers that we eat as well. Well, sauerkraut naturally has the fiber, so it's a natural prebiotic and a probiotic itself. They're kind of working synergistically together like a beautiful marriage. So I say this is much cheaper than buying commercially prepared probiotics. Will be right there in your kitchen for your whole family to enjoy. And I'll share a little secret with you that I do as well as far as salad dressings. Any of you guys make salad dressings at home? Right? You need a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil, right? A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of mustard, like Dijon mustard, a little garlic if you want to, right? A little lemon juice. But also, instead of putting vinegar, you can scoop a little bit of this fermentation liquid. Shh, don't tell your family. Put it into the salad dressing, shake it all, and guess what? Your family just got natural probiotics right there in their salad. It's a really good trick. Don't tell my family, but I do it a lot. All right, so this is the last of it. I'm just gonna put everything at the top here. That is the last of the cabbage. And I saved a last few leaves. I saved them, and I'll show you what we're gonna do with them. Say I saved a few leaves. Okay, so everything is in here. Let me clean up in here real quick. So we got ourselves this beautiful ceramic stone. So see how it filled up pretty nice? Okay, so now I'm gonna be making a brine, okay? But before I get to the brine, so some people wrote to me that they add caraway seeds or they put, what else? Celery seeds. Listen, you can put whatever you want because it depends on where you come from, and that's what people do. Some people like to add green apple or red apple, whatever. Some people like to put radishes in here, nicely sliced. All of those things will work very nice in here. I don't put them in here. My recipe is just a cabbage with carrots, with peppers, black pepper, ground up pepper, and salt brine. So now let me make the salt brine, and I'll show you what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to show you the proportion of perfect amount of salt to be safe and yet still do the fermentation. So I have a quart jar here, and I'm going to be putting 2 tablespoons of this is not Himalayan, this is Celtic sea salt, 2 tablespoons, okay? And I just have some, this is not boiling water, just hot water. I'm gonna be pouring a little bit of hot water at the bottom just to help to dissolve the salt, okay? Because it's gonna take forever to dissolve in cold water. And so that's the beginning of my brine. So the proportion of salt to water is 2 tablespoons of salt to 1 quart or 1 liter of water. And it comes out perfect each and every time. I promise you guys. This is a tested recipe. I have been doing this for many years now. All right, so I'm just gonna shake it around, making sure that everything is nicely dissolved before I add the cold water. And I have some cold water here. We have well water, so it's a beautiful, clean water. But if you guys live with tap water, I recommend either leaving it open in a container just like this for 2 days so the chlorine can escape, or use spring water or filtered water without chlorine. But also I do recommend to avoid fluoride as well. All right, so that has dissolved. Now I'm gonna top it off with cold water, regular cold water. All right, I'm gonna quickly stir everything. All right. And here's I'm just gonna pour over here everything. And I'm gonna keep making enough brine to make sure that everything is nicely covered. Okay, so I'm gonna be making more. I do prefer to use Celtic sea salt or Himalayan salt because it has a whole lot more of essential minerals that our body requires rather than just the table salt, because the table salt is really sodium chloride, and sometimes it's added iodine, so it's iodized sodium chloride, but it's missing everything else. But Celtic sea salt has 92 minerals. They may be in a small amount, but they are there, so it's much better for you than regular table salt that can cause hypertension and other issues. All right, dissolved. I'm gonna add the cold water here. All right, so now it became room temperature, and again pouring it over. All right, so I think this is gonna be the last one because I already see some of the I see some of the brine here. So let me press this down. Do you see all the brine came up? Now, this is what I like to do next. Either with the long spoon or with the skewer or with, like, I don't know, something. Poke holes through it. So that way that there's liquid, this brine is between all of the cabbage. So nothing is compressed without the salty brine in between. Okay, just like this. Because we don't want any unfriendly bacteria, the mold, the fuzzy, ugly gray mold to grow. That has happened to me a long time ago when I was, newlywed, and unfortunately my mama already was not here with us to share her wisdom and answer me my questions. So I'm gonna poke now with a wooden spoon all the way down. All right, so I'm touching the bottom. All right, so let me add a little bit more liquid. I do have plenty of space. All right, and I'm gonna be putting those reserved pieces that I have, because that's exactly how Mama did it. All right, and just cover everything. Cover everything the best you can. The best you can, just like this. And you need to put some sort of a weight down. I have this beautiful stoneware. Seems like each one of them is 4 pounds. You know what? No, let me do this first. Hold on a second. Let me take this out. I'm gonna put a plate down first. That's what my mama used to do. Let me grab a plate, and hopefully it will fit. It doesn't fit. No, it doesn't fit. Never mind. So the plate doesn't fit. Let me use a smaller plate. I'm gonna put a smaller plate. All right. And now on top of that, I'll put my weights. There you go. So now everything, isn't this beautiful? Yes, ma'am. That's how I love it. Here you go. All right, now I have also a cover. If I didn't have a cover, I would have just put something loosely so gases, the little bubbles that it's gonna start creating will escape. Well, this cover, see, this is a cover. This cover actually has like little tiny slices right here where the air can escape. And that's it, my friends. All right, so now let me talk to you where I'm going to be storing it. Okay, it needs to sit and ferment. And any fermentation, just like sourdough bread, it likes warmth, but not too hot, right? It likes warmth. So my kitchen right now stays about 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is a good temperature for the fermentation. If I was to ferment this in the summer months, it's much hotter, so the fermentation will be a little bit faster. The fermentation can be done in about 5-6 days, but right now it's a little bit cooler, so it will take longer. Okay, so the first first way of fermentation, or the first fermentation, will be done when the bubbles pretty much kind of like subside and you taste it, and it will be that nice, still crunchy, but it will have that pleasant sour taste to the cabbage. Okay, so this will take place in a few days, so keep checking on it. Lift it up, look at it. Oh, looks great. Okay, everything's still under the brine. Put a cover back on and leave it alone. If you're doing it in a jar, like this, a see-through, I advise to throw a towel over, because fermentation likes warm and dark environment. So throw a towel over. But in my case, it's nicely covered already. Oh, I love this already. So when the first fermentation is finished, which is gonna take about a week, maybe 2, maybe 3, I'm gonna be putting it in a cold place for long-term storage. How cold of a place? If you have a space in the fridge is perfect. So if you have in a small jar, perfect in the fridge. But this bad boy will not fit in my fridge, so I'm gonna put it in my cold garage, because the garage where we live here, it stays nice and cold through the winter. Now, if we don't finish it by the time the summer gets here, I need to move it into a cold place. So in order for it to last a long time, it has to be in a cold, dark place. And slowly, even though it's in a dark, cold place, slowly it's still gonna be fermenting just enough, just lightly enough, that it stays fresh, it stays good, and it's full of probiotics. And it's so good for your immune system. Remember, 80% of our immune system comes from our gut, and we need to keep it healthy, keep it alive. All right, so here is my sauerkraut. Hopefully I have answered some of your questions and explained to you why I'm adding the brine, because this is a late variety and it does not produce a lot of juice. Plus, I don't like to beat it, massage it. I don't do that. I like it to stay whole just as is. So friends, if you have any comments, please leave them below. I enjoy questions, I enjoy comments. So please, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Join Mama Lil's family of Luli's Homestead, and I hope that you are encouraged to ferment vegetables, because you can ferment any vegetable you like. Do you like fermented carrots? Do it. Do you like fermented zucchinis? Do it. And I have videos for that, and I will pull up the links for them as well. On this note, friends, be encouraged and try something new.